Today's lesson is expressing and receiving appreciation. Hi everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Candice.
And we are looking at our Plus Talk unit for this month. We're going to have 2 days with 4 dialogues over 2 days. And this month, we're going to be looking at expressing and receiving appreciation. All right, appreciation is basically thanks. Or when you say to someone, I like what you did, I'm happy what you did, I'm thankful for what you did, thanks very much for all your help, that kind of thing. Now, it's something that, it's nice to do, to keep things polite, to keep things on a very happy level. When people do something nice for you, it's very important, or it's especially kind to express your appreciation. In other words, to say thanks for what they've done. And also sometimes if people thank us, it can kind of make us feel awkward and uncomfortable. Maybe you didn't expect it, or maybe you feel like you're kind of shy and, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. But, knowing how to receive that appreciation can also be very important.
Yeah, so throughout time, we've had different ways of expressing gratitude. People used to write thank you letters and thank you cards. But of course, in different contexts, we also thank people in different ways. So we use different language. For example, when we're thanking our friend for doing something for us, or when we're thanking our boss for doing something for us, or our teacher for doing something for us. So we use different language and different vocabulary to express our appreciation, to express our gratitude.
Exactly right. So let's look at our first dialogue today. It's about when you express appreciation to an instructor. Oh, very interesting. So let's listen to it and then we'll be back to talk about it. Expressing and receiving appreciation. 1. To an instructor. Sarah stops at the open door of her professor's office.
Excuse me, Professor Cooper. Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Certainly, Sarah. Please come in. What can I do for you?
I just wanted to thank you for writing that letter of recommendation for me and being so helpful during office hours this semester.
Well, it's all part of the job, but I'm certainly glad if I could be of any assistance. I think you've got a bright future, and I hope the letter helps you get that job you're applying for.
I'm sure it will. Anyway, thank you again for everything, and I'll let you know if I get the job.
大家好，第一部分我们看到单字 instructor， 这个字是名词，指教师、大学讲师、指导者或是教练。例如 My dancing instructor studied for many years in France. 我的舞蹈老师曾在法国学习舞蹈多年。也可以说 Sam works as a tennis instructor during the summer months. Sam 暑期时担任网球指导员。另外补充这个字的动词 instruct， I-N-S-T-R-U-C-T instruct 表示指示或是吩咐。例如 The teacher instructed her students to take out a pen and a piece of paper. 老师指示他的学生拿出笔和一张纸。或是 Ivy instructed her son to clean his room. Ivy 吩咐儿子清理他的房间。接着我们看到名词 recommendation， 指推荐、推荐信、介绍或是建议。像是 The applicant had a recommendation from one of his previous employers. 申请这份工作的人有他过去老板的推荐信。或者 I'm looking for a book to read. Do you have any recommendations? 我在找一本书来读，你有什么建议吗？另外补充这个字的动词 recommend。R-E-C-O-M-M-E-N-D recommend 表示建议或是推荐。我们可以说 Ralph's doctor recommended that he exercise more. Ralph 的医生建议他多多运动。再来我们看到单字 assistance， 这个字是名词，表示帮助、协助。例如 I really appreciate Winnie's assistance with my English paper. 我很感谢 Winnie 对我英文报告的协助。也可以说Lori found her pet dog with the assistance of her kind neighbors. Lori 在好心邻居的协助下找到了她的宠物狗。另外补充这个字的动词 assist， A-S-S-I-S-T assist 指协助或是帮助。像是 Two nurses assisted the doctor during the afternoon. 2位护士在下午时段协助那位医生。或者 Edward assisted the old man who had trouble walking. Edward 帮助那位行动不便的老人。
So yes, expressing appreciation to an instructor. In this case, an instructor, we can think of it basically as a teacher, a coach. Someone who instructs is someone who teaches, someone who tells you information, useful information, passes on advice, tips, wisdom, new methods, things like that. So an instructor is probably a teacher of some kind. And yeah, when you're expressing appreciation to someone who's kind of got more authority than you, that can be a little bit difficult, right? You don't want to sound like you're just trying to like be really nice to them in order to get their help or to get something from them. But you also do need to thank that person because, you know, they do have a position of authority. In this case, kind of like with a university professor or something like that. And that seems to be what's going on here because we read at the beginning, Sarah stops at the open door of her professor's office. So Sarah, I guess, is the student, and this Professor Cooper is her teacher.
Yes, and as Mike said, an instructor could be anyone from a sports coach to a teacher to professor, and sometimes even at work, we could have a mentor, someone who is instructing you in a certain skill. So she stops at her professor's office and very gently says, "Excuse me, Professor Cooper, can I interrupt you for a minute?" So that's very polite. So instead of just saying, "Professor Cooper, this, and that," she says, "Can I interrupt you for a minute?" So she's respecting his time.
Yeah.
She's saying, "Can I have a moment of your time?" So when you say, "Can I interrupt you for a minute?" we're saying, "I know I'm disturbing you, but would you mind just stopping your work for a moment? I'd like to talk to you." So that's a nice way to say, "Can I interrupt you for a moment? Can I have a moment of your time?"
Yeah, she could have used that word to disturb. Can I disturb you for a minute? Can I talk to you for a minute? I can kind of imagine she might be sort of knocking on the open door as well, sort of say, "Hello, I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm sorry to interrupt you." That's the kind of thing you might want to do to be polite. And of course, the professor always has time for his students. So he says, "Certainly, Sarah, please come in. What can I do for you?" So in other words, I'm happy to talk to you. Come on in, take a seat. What's your problem? What can I do for you? How can I help you?
And Sarah goes on to say, "I just wanted to thank you for writing that letter of recommendation for me and being so helpful during office hours this semester." So, of course, the professor has various duties and responsibilities, and sometimes students do ask for letters of recommendation. The professor is not obligated to write letters of a recommendation. So it's not necessarily his responsibility to recommend every single student, but in certain cases where he thinks that you're a good student or you've been working hard or you have really good qualities, I'm willing to write a letter of recommendation for you. Then, of course, the professor will help out a student with writing a letter of recommendation. And of course, letters of recommendation are quite important because when you want to find a job, people don't really know what to expect. Future employers don't know what to expect. So they rely on your previous employer or your teachers or people who have interacted with you in some way to give a report on you, to tell them what you're like. And they will then trust that information coming from a respected professor or someone in a position of authority.
That's right. And of course, recommendations like this don't always come in the form of a letter. I mean, you can call someone and give a recommendation to a person. Or also, if someone says, "Hey, I ate at this great restaurant, you'd really like it," that's a recommendation too. They're recommending something. But of course, if it's in the form of a letter, it's much more official. And as Candace explained, you might get this when you're going to a new job, when you're transferring to a new school or something like that. Just a way of sort of, opening the doors a little bit and saying, "Don't just trust me, trust the person who wrote the letter. See, that's an important person who wrote the letter. And see all the good things they said about me? I must be great," right? Anyway, so it's kind of a favor for the professor to do this for Sarah. So that's, of course, why she's being very nice and following up by thanking the professor. And the professor, he's kind of like, "Hey, no problem." But he says it like this: "Well, it's all part of the job, but I'm certainly glad if I could be of any assistance." In other words, people ask me to do that all the time. It's not strange. It's part of the job. As a professor, I do this for students. But he says, "I'm certainly glad if I could be of any assistance. But if it helps you a lot, if it gets you that dream job or whatever you need, whatever you're hoping for, I hope that is what works out. I'm happy to be of assistance. Assistance is a fancy word for help. Can I get your assistance? Can I get your help? Basically the same thing. In a more formal way, we might use this, or if you're in a store, for example, or in a hotel and you look a little lost, someone might walk over and say, can I be of any assistance? Can I give you any assistance? We're just talking about help. So he's glad that he could help her. And then he says, I think you've got a bright future. Well, that's very nice. And I hope the letter helps you get that job you're applying for. So he's obviously impressed with Sarah as a young person. He says she's got a bright future, like a lot of good things are going to happen for you. You're going to be successful. I'm sure of it. And I hope the letter that I wrote for you specifically helps you get that dream job or that job you're applying for. So it's just a nice way of sort of receiving the thanks from Sarah and kind of saying, I was happy to do it and I think you were definitely worth it. It was no problem. And anytime I can help, just let me know.
Yes, and Sarah is reassured. She says, yes, I think the letter will definitely help. I'm sure it will. Anyway, thank you again for everything, and I'll let you know if I get the job. So that's a nice way to wrap up the conversation, because really she was only there for a moment to say thank you for the letter. So she doesn't want to draw out the conversation too long. I don't suppose they have that much in common to have a conversation about. He is a professor, so she might talk a little bit about school things or academic things, but really she is staying on point. She's staying on task. She came there to thank him for the recommendation letter. And of course, she ends off by saying she'll let him know if she gets the job because, of course, I'm sure the professor would be interested if his star pupil or his star student is able to gain some benefit from the letter that he wrote.
So there you go. A well-handled situation there by Sarah, and Professor Cooper obviously was happy to help her out. And from her character, I can see why. All right, let's have a look at part 2 of our dialogue. We're going to be talking about expressing and receiving appreciation from a client. So a business situation. Let's check it out. 2. From a client. The phone rings in Max's office and he answers it. Hello, Max speaking.
Hi, Max. It's Chelsea. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
To be honest, I'm feeling relieved now that we finally got that project finished. So, I just wanted to say thanks for your help with that. We couldn't have done it without you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I could help. It was a lot of work, but I think everything came out really well.
Me too. So, we certainly hope to work with you again soon.
That would be great. Please give me a call if I can ever be of any help.
最后第二部分我们看到形容词 relieved， 它的意思是感到放心的或是宽慰的。举例来说 Ellen was relieved when she learned her grandmother was no longer sick. 得知她的祖母不再生病时 Ellen 放心了。或是 When Gary saw that his wife had made it out of the burning building, he was very relieved. 当 Gary 看到他太太成功从燃烧的建筑中逃出时，松了一口气。另外补充这个字的动词 relieve， R-E-L-I-E-V-E relieve， 指缓和，使安心或是使松一口气。像是 Putting a cold towel on your forehead might relieve your fever. 在额头上放冰毛巾，或许能缓和你的发烧症状。
Okay, so we are back. Yeah, so From a Client is the title of this next dialogue. That, of course, is someone who does business with your company. So let's see the situation here. From a client, it says the phone rings in Max's office and he answers it. And so we go to Max and he's answering a phone. Hello, Max speaking. That's what he says, and that's a pretty formal way, a business-like way of answering a telephone. You could say that at home, but it might be a little unusual. But maybe if you live in a big home, you have lots of roommates or something, you might do that. But in an office setting, that is a very acceptable and slightly polite, formal way of answering your phone.
So, hello, Max speaking. And then Chelsea's on the other end of the line. She says, hi, Max, it's Chelsea. How are you today? So, Chelsea is just observing the phone etiquette. So, when you talk on the phone, you don't necessarily get straight to the point, you would first exchange some pleasantries. And the pleasantries are, of course, asking, how are you today? I hope you're doing well. And then after you've exchanged your pleasantries, you can get to the reason for your call.
Exactly right. Now, of course, as you said, these are pleasantries. So it's not a really honest question of how are you today? You don't want to say, oh, my toe really hurts and my dog threw up on the bed. And, you don't actually want to get into how you are in most of these situations. If it's a close friend or family, if it's a casual chat, maybe. But on the phone in a business situation, it's fine just to say, I'm good, or I'm okay, or things are fine, or something like that. And Max says, I'm good. How are you? So there you go. He's fine. Okay, fine, let's move on. How are you? To be asking her a question. And it seems that Chelsea is not so good. Something isn't going well with her, but luckily it's nothing about her dog making a mess in the bedroom. It's a business problem.
Right. So Chelsea is a little bit more forthcoming about how she is really doing. So she says, to be honest, I'm feeling relieved now that we finally got that project finished. So the context there is that they had a project and it must have been quite a tough project or something that she had to work really hard on because now she feels relieved, which means that she feels like a weight has been lifted. So when we feel relieved, there must have been a lot of pressure on her during that project. But now, of course, the project is finished. So that pressure has been relieved, has been lifted from her shoulders. So, of course, she's now trying to talk to Max because she wants to thank him for his role in assisting with that project.
Oh, okay.
So she says, so I just wanted to say thanks for your help with that. So Max was also involved in the project and we couldn't have done it without you. It sounds there, wouldn't you say, Mike, that he had quite a significant role in the project.
I was going to say he sounds like a key person, like the key to the puzzle, the answer to their problems. And that's why Chelsea is especially thankful for him. She's thankful that the project is finished. She feels relief. She's going, phew, that feeling after a tough time, after you got through that really tough exam or you delivered a successful presentation in front of your boss and all the VIPs and you walk out that evening when you get home, you're just like, oh, I feel so much better. So that's the relief. That's how she feels relieved. And she feels relieved. She feels this feeling of successful completion of a difficult task because of what he did. So yeah, I think that's worth a call or an email or a note or even, take the guy out for a coffee or a drink or a meal or something like that. That would be a nice thing to do if they were so key to the success that you're very grateful for. And so Max is happy to hear this. He doesn't really make it a big deal. He says, oh, you're welcome. Sounds like he wasn't really expecting the call. Like he's like, they should thank me for what I did for them. No, he's not really. He's like, oh, yeah, no problem. You're welcome. I'm glad I could help, he says. It was a lot of work, but I think everything came out really well. So there you go. He's agreeing with her. He's feeling the same emotions with her in some way. Yeah, it was tough. It was a big project. It was a challenge. It was a lot of work. But I think everything came out really well. The end result was really good. Everything was completed. Everything was wrapped up in a satisfactory situation, in a satisfactory state. Everything was fine after all that hard work. And I'm glad to help you, Chelsea.
Yeah, that's the result that we're all looking for. We want things to come out well in the end. And Chelsea is happy too, of course. Me too. So we certainly hope to work with you again soon. So it was obviously a positive working experience working with Max. And she's continuing to praise him by saying that she'd like to work with him again because of the success of this project and all of Max's assistance with it.
That's great. This is also just a really good way of giving feedback for things, right? People who do work, sometimes if the boss doesn't say good job, or maybe the boss says it was okay, but this could be improved, that kind of thing. That can be really helpful for workers or people who cooperate on projects. Just to hear someone say, thanks, it worked out really well. You were a key person. We were very happy with what you did. That's just a nice way of kind of knowing that you're doing a good job and also feeling, that you're appreciated. So that was a very nice call from Chelsea. I'm sure Max feels good about that. He says, that would be great. great. I had a good time. This call makes me even happier with our relationship, with how things are going. That would be great. Please give me a call if I can ever be of any help, if I can be of any help, if I can be of any assistance, if I can help you in the future. He's kind of saying it went well now. I expect it would go well in the future. So if you want to cooperate in the future, you know my phone number. We were just talking on the phone now, and you gave me a nice call to express some appreciation. So well done, everyone. I think that was a very well-handled phone call, and also our first one was useful with the student thanking the professor. So there you go. Now we're going to wrap it up as we go over to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。首先看到这次绘画的主题是表达与接受感谢，那其中的 appreciation 它表示感谢或是欣赏，它是来自动词 appreciate。 我们来学习它的字首字根。好，当你看到 price 或者是 preci 这一类字根呢，表示价格、价值或者是报酬。在 appreciate 这个字当中，字首 AP 是来自 AD 表示朝向，因为这个 AD 它摆在字母 P 之前就会拼成 AP 了。好，那么字根 PRECI 表示价值， ATE 是动词字尾。朝向价值这个可以怎么联想呢？当我们朝向某个人，对着某个人肯定他的价值，应该很容易联想到 appreciate， 它有感谢、感激、欣赏、赏识的意思。好，那顺便补充几个有这一类字根的单字。第一个是 depreciate， 也就是把 appreciate 它的字首 AP 改成 DE。 好，那这个字首 DE 它表示往下， PRECI 表示价值， ATE 是动词字尾。当某物品它的价值往下走，那就表示它贬值咯， depreciate 它就有贬值、折旧的意思。那么第二个补充的是 precious， 它的字根 PRECI 表示价值， OUS 是形容词字尾，那么合在一起 precious 就是珍贵的、宝贵的。第三个补充的是 priceless， 它的字根 price 我们知道是价钱的意思，那么 LESS 这个字尾表示无，合在一起 priceless 就是无价的、非常珍贵的。那么在课文第二部分的对话里面， Chelsea 打电话向 Max 道谢，谢谢他的协助。他就说 We couldn't have done it without you， 如果没有你，我们是不可能做到的。那这边要介绍的是 without 加名词去搭配假设法主要子句的用法，可以表达出要不是点点点，如果没有点点点的那种意思。那以下要介绍两种句型。第一种句型就是 without 加名词逗号，主词加上 could、would、might 或者是 should 再加原形动词，那这是用来表达跟现在事实相反的情况。举例来说 without water There would be no life on Earth。 要是没有水，地球上就不会有生命存在了。好，那来看第二个句型是 without 加名词逗号，主词加上 could、would、might 或者是 should， 后面再接完成式 have 加 PP。 好，那这是用来表达跟过去事实相反的情况，像课文就是这个用法。那我们来造个例句 Without your help We wouldn't have succeeded。 当时要是没有你的帮忙啊，我们就没办法成功了。所以这是对过去的事实做相反的假设，如果当时没有你的帮忙的话，我们不会成功。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Instructor. The driving instructor reminded William to signal every turn. Interrupt. The play was interrupted because someone pulled the fire alarm. Recommendation. On the recommendation of her doctor, Sienna began exercising daily. Assistance. Brad could not have afforded the trip without financial assistance from his parents. Relieved. Wanda was relieved to learn that she had passed her English exam.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I'm Candice.
See you next time.